Yeah, absolutely. All right. Up next, we had a brief Sami Zayn, Adrian Neville promo. They basically just kind of said, "Oh, Gabriel and Kid want to gang up on Sammy or whatever, and we're coming for you." Is really what it comes down to. And then we also had a Justin Gabriel Tyson Kidd promo, but this is more interview style with Devin Taylor. And Justin Gabriel did all the talking here, and I gotta tell you, I am genuinely impressed. I didn't know Gabriel could cut a promo like this.
I forgot that he could cut a promo like this, and to be
I don't
honest,
think that you can forget it because I don't think he's ever done it before.
I was just about to say that. I think you are more correct when you say you didn't even know he was capable, because I don't think he's ever been allowed to show these kinds of chops before.
And dude,
You know,
even when he was on NXT season 1, when he was allowed to talk, he was awful at it.
oh yeah, he was like every other generic babyface to me. You could put anybody in his place, and I couldn't really tell the difference from a talking standpoint. Here, though, was absolutely fantastic, because Gabriel does, and see the power of using history when you have it. I think it just really enhances the promo, because he says, "Hey, 4 years ago I was on NXT, and I scratched and I clawed, and then I got on the main roster, and now I ended up back here." And he says, to me, when I go through that kind of climb, yeah, it is frustrating. And I didn't want to believe what Tyson told me, but it took one more loss for me to be convinced. And he pretty much says he's going to remind everybody that even though Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville are fantastic talents, and NXT is the place to be, which again, kudos to Justin Gabriel for, in the context of the heel promo, putting the babyface opposition over so you don't completely tear them down.
Yep.
He says, they don't have my ability, they don't have my charisma, and they don't have my looks. And, he leaves with kind of like a cocky smirk. And then, I mean, you already said, like, by the end of the night, so we're not going to get too into Tyson yet. At least I won't. But Tyson had a great moment here, because Devin Taylor was about to interview him, and he just puts his finger up in the air, and he's like, no, I'm checking out. And he leaves. Great stuff.
Yep. Justin Gabriel surprised the crap out of me with this promo. Really good stuff. And you know what? It wasn't even necessarily just the content. It was the delivery. He had some fire going on, which I've never seen out of him before.
Yeah, I think you even said to me, like, he was really spitting fire. Well, no, actually, that was in a later segment.
That was a completely different person, too.
Yeah, and you know what? That surprised me, and I can't wait to talk about that. But yeah, you've been an advocate for Gabriel for a long time, dude.
Dude, to me, he's one of the most underrated ring workers the WWE has, and for him to suddenly be able to have the ability to cut a decent promo, to me, I mean, give him something to do on the main roster. He's so good.
And you've been saying that for a long time. I mean, you've really been consistent in your support of Gabriel. I don't think you've ever wavered. Whereas with me, I've had my complaints, but I think I'm really starting to come around. I've always enjoyed him from an in-ring standpoint, but if this is any indication, I think all the other vital pieces are finally, if agonizingly, slow, but they're finally coming together. So
it's just so weird because, like, with Gabriel, it's one of those things where he's never been that good of a talker, but even before he was on NXT Season 1 and FCW, he's always had these weird, just like pure wrestling clinics when nobody was watching. Like in FCW, he had an amazing match against Caval. Then he gets called up to NXT and starts putting on a good match. Randomly, one time on, I don't even know if it was Superstars or Main Event, he had a freaking 15-20 minute clinic with Heath Slater. He is so good and so underrated. I just want to see him get something to do so that we can see him get a 10-15 minute match every now and then on a pay-per-view rather than just seeing him job out on Superstars or Main Event every other week, if that.
The match that really opened up my eyes to Justin Gabriel, since you really shared a couple of the clinics that really, like, amazed you, was when he was in the Nexus and he had a one-on-one match with John Cena.
Yes.
Took Cena to the limit, and I'm like, man, this kid is awesome. Why aren't the other pieces coming together? And that's honestly why I was grateful to Wade, because I was, and I think you always disagreed with me on this point, but I thought Wade was such a great mic worker in the context of being the leader of the Nexus that, he really carried the weight that the other guys didn't have to speak too much, which I thought was great for Gabriel. But man, he could get it done between those. I think he was, since Brian got excommunicated from the group early on, I really did think that Gabriel was the best in-ring worker in the Nexus for my money.
And he was, by far.
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing that I did agree with you on when you were a really strong advocate for Gabriel, I did think that he should have gotten at least one, if only brief, Intercontinental or United States Championship run. I still think he can, Honestly, I don't think it would be too late for him, but the pieces have got to come together. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, for what it's worth, he is only 33. Now, I say only because in general, the WWE's main roster guys are probably averaging around like 35, 36, namely like the Orton, Ziggler, Cena, that kind of era. And Gabriel's a little bit under that. Even like Barrett, I think, is like 35 or something like that. So Gabriel is kind of in the middle. He's not like a young guy like a Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt, but he's also not one of like the middle-aged, like already in their prime guys like Cena, Orton, Ziggler, that kind of thing.
He really is walking that tightrope, but you know what? I feel like guys like Goldust, Jericho with his recent comeback, wrestling I think has changed the paradigm that it's not strictly a young man's game.
No, John. I want to correct you there because wrestling has literally never been a young man's game. The further back you go, the older the average wrestler was. The young man game is something that only really started showing up with The Rock in 1997 or 98 when he started getting shoved up to the moon. And even since then, you can only really point out like 3 to 5 guys who really made it big at a young age. I mean, you've got The Rock, maybe you could say Cena, but even Cena was in his mid-20s when he got pushed to the moon. Orton and Brock Lesnar, and that's about it. And now, I mean, we've got this huge influx of talent, but, I mean, freaking DDP was in his 40s when he started wrestling, and Batista didn't see a ring until he was in his 30s. So to say that wrestling has ever been a young man's game, in my opinion, is really looking into the future more than anything, because if you're looking to the past, it's never been that.
I can concede that point, but I am glad that you qualified that statement, because one thing I will hold my guns to is that WWE is definitely currently in the process, and I think will be for the next couple of years if things that we're seeing come to pass, on a youth movement.
Definitely. No doubt about that, dude. No doubt about that whatsoever.
But I think where I can really readily agree with you, and I wish WWE had this, and I think they still do. I think older experienced guys have such an invaluable asset to the company when used correctly. Even when Gabriel gets up there and stuff like that, you don't have to relegate him or discard him. I think there's always a place if you feel like they could be worthy of that place. And again, we'll see what Gabriel can do, but I've got my eye on him now because I'm so glad he's a heel again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, he seems to work better as a heel too. Although at the end of the day, I think that his flashy style of offense lends itself more to a babyface. Maybe he cuts better heel promos. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the reason that he was so awful at cutting promos in NXT was because he was a babyface and he just couldn't get over as that generic babyface. Whereas now he gets the opportunity to be heel and suddenly he's got a personality. It blows my mind. And I mean, before I finish and let you kind of reply to what I've been saying, I've actually seen some tape from Justin Gabriel in South Africa when he was PJ Black, and he was a cocky heel back then, and he was freaking awesome.
I think Edge said it best in his autobiography, and he said it's always going to be easier to get people to dislike you than for them to love you. Because I think for them to love you requires so many more layers than it would for them to hate you.
Well, because in order for people to love you, they need to be able to relate to you. And how easy could it possibly be to get a regular guy to relate to you when you are a professional athlete putting your body on the line every single week and you're on these constant health regimens and you're making all this money? You're not a relatable person, so you really do have to go out of your way to make yourself relatable to the common man.
Precisely.
I mean, Daniel Bryan's a millionaire, but you wouldn't know it judging based off of what people react to him for.
And that's why it works. And I think my concluding remarks, so we can get on with the rest of the formal NXT review, is that, for a long time I've always wondered about the concept of heel high flyers. And I'll be honest, Ash, when I was younger, I always thought that the term was almost paradoxical. Like, How could anybody hate a high flyer, because the things that they do are insane. But guys like Justin Gabriel, and there are others, like for me personally, and I know I'm in the minority for this majorly, but I enjoyed AJ's heel work in TNA when he had his latest run before he left the company for good. And now I don't know if he's a heel with this whole Bullet Club thing in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
He's kind of in like that Wyatt family range where he's kind of supposed to be a heel, but everyone loves him anyway, so it doesn't really count.
Right. But I think they're proving, and Justin Gabriel may potentially prove, and Tyson Kidd, who again we'll get to, and oh god, so good, are really proving that it's a viable model, and that, I think, makes me have all the respect in the world for what they're doing, because I honestly didn't even think it was possible. And you could add Seth Rollins in there too, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, these guys...
Yeah, Rollins is another one. He's almost an experiment at this point because he's never really been a heel in the WWE system. Like, even in FCW, NXT, the only time that he has ever been a heel was the very brief run that he was still showing up on every now and then NXT shows while he was with the Shield. And then he was literally only on the show to lose the title to Big E.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think Rollins is really kind of like spearheading this whole heel high flyer movement simply because he's the most polished, the most, I think, really recognizable, and the most beloved.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to sound like a TNA lover, because you and I both know very well that I generally just get miserable when I watch their shows. But let's not forget Jeff Hardy's heel run in TNA with Immortal.
Very true. Very true. Another guy that I would mention even further back than Hardy for me, even though he never really made it big. I mean, his finisher alone, I think, was the most over part about him. P.D. Williams, when he was a part of the Canadian faction. I think it was just Team Canada and stuff like that.
Yeah, but he wasn't really a high flyer. He was more the technical type.
That's true. I mean,
his finishing move was incredible, and that got him over too. But
I mean, Christopher Daniels, I think, when he was a heel, going after AJ's World Championship, and even before that, like he had
again though, not really a high flyer. He has one high flying move, the BME, and he doesn't even use it in every match.
Well, I guess the last example I would, and if you disputed this is a high flyer, I would have to continue on it. Would be Jay Lethal, both what we're seeing currently in ROH and brief stuff that he did in TNA. So you're looking at these guys, and I definitely think they're breaking the mold. So.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I can understand where you would come up with that, because, although, you know what, though, again, to me, the only high-flying thing Lethal does is the elbow drop.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't consider the lethal injection to be like an aerial maneuver, because to me that's like some crazy stylings that he does there.
It's no more aerial than an RKO.
That's true.
I don't know. It's flashier than an RKO.
I don't know. I can see where you're coming from, but I think really what God, now I don't even know what I'm trying to say, because you really do make good points. I don't even really know where to go from here. But I think smaller guys, let me put it like that, I guess. Right. Smaller guys like these guys, really your cruiserweights, that are supposed to be the really exciting, have the great matches, tear the house down kind of guys.
Hey, dude, how about this? If you want to talk about a heel high flyer, Eddie Guerrero was a pretty darn good heel.
Yeah, but see, like, why would you see now? This is where, and I don't mean to be like too contentious, but like I would use the same arguments you've been using against me. Eddie, I don't really think was that much of a high flyer. He was far more technically based.
But at the same time, I can name at least two high flying moves that he did.
I can name the frog splash and the
slingshot senton.
The slingshot senton, and that's it for me. Yeah.
Okay, maybe not. So yeah, it is tough. But then I mean, at this rate, Seth Rollins really only has the flying knee.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great point too. Maybe, God, see now look at us. We're trying to do this. Maybe an ECW, because I know RVD.
Okay, maybe we should redefine this from high flyer to exciting.
That's better. That works. Yeah, because I think
if you want to talk about exciting heels, then we can talk about your TNA Jeff Hardy with Immortal. We can talk about your Jay Lethal. We can talk about your, I don't know if I would call Christopher Daniels exciting, but we can talk about your AJ. We can talk about, all these guys. Then yeah, I would say exciting is probably the better way to.
One more group that I want to mention, and then we can move on. And I don't know why I didn't think of them before. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, before they became Motor City Machine Guns as babyfaces, when they were Paparazzi Productions, I thought, they were great heels, especially because of their association with Kevin Nash. I thought they did great stuff. But I think they were too likable as well, so they still kind of fit in that one paradigm.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. If you're exciting, it's tough to get heat.
It is, and you know what? The more, though, that these guys are working at it, the more that I'm actually a fan of it, because it's just so different. Because look at the conversation we just had and the difficulty of it. That shows you how difficult it's been to make this transition to create a new paradigm.